Some tales teach lessons, others are made to frighten children, but they all reflect something within the writing. This story shows what happens after kindness is too difficult to bear and how some easily are led astray. Welcome to the Story Diner. I'm Chois and I'll be your storyteller on this evening. Today's feast is the story of The New Mother by Lucy Clifford. So, let's dine, shall we? There were once two young sisters who lived with their mother in a lonely cottage at the edge of a great forest. The older child was called Blue Eyes, and the younger was called Turkey. Rather odd names. Their father had died many years before, leaving their mother to take care of them alone. She worked hard from morning until night. She cooked their meals, washed their clothes, mended their blankets, and kept the cottage warm whenever the winter winds came crawling through the trees. Their mother was kind, but she expected the girls to behave. She warned them to never wander too far into the forest. She warned them to never speak to strangers. And above all, she warned them that wickedness always invites something worse to follow. For many years, the girls did obey. But one afternoon, while gathering flowers beside the road, they heard music drifting through the trees. It was a strange melody, soft, playful, almost beautiful. A young girl appeared along the path, dressed in bright clothing. She carried a curious wooden box beneath her arm. Blue Eyes and Turkey had never seen her before. Still, rather strange names. The stranger smiled at them. "Would you like to see something wonderful?" she asked. The sisters stepped closer. The girl placed the box upon the ground and opened its lid. Inside were two tiny dancing figures. One was a little man. The other was a little woman. When the stranger turned a silver handle, music began to play, and the figures spun around and around. Blue Eyes and Turkey stared in amazement. They begged to see more, but the stranger closed the lid. "I only show the whole performance to children who are truly naughty," she said. The girls looked at one another. They had never thought of themselves as naughty before. So they asked, "What must we do?" The stranger smiled. "Disobey your mother." The sisters hesitated. They knew they should leave. They knew they should return home and tell their mother what had happened. But they wanted to see the tiny dancers again. So, that evening, when their mother called them inside, they ignored. When she asked them to wash before supper, they refused. When she told them to put away their toys, they scattered them across the floor. Their mother stared at them in disbelief. "What happened to you?" she asked. The girls said nothing. They only thought about the music box. The following day, they returned to the road and the strange girl was waiting. "We were naughty," Turkey said proudly. The stranger opened the box and played another piece of the performance. The tiny figures danced faster than before, but once again, the girl shut the lid before the dance was finished. "That is not enough," she said. "You must become much worse." And so the sisters did. They broke dishes. They tore holes in their clothing. They shouted at their mother. They refused to help with chores. Each day, their mother became more frightened. She could not understand what had changed her children. At night, she sat beside their beds and begged them to tell her what was wrong. But the sisters turned their faces toward the wall. They did not see their mother's tears. They did not care. All they wanted was to see the final dance inside the wooden box. Days passed, then weeks. The girls became crueler. They spoiled food. They threw stones at birds. They destroyed the small garden their mother had spent years tending. Still, the stranger said it was not enough. "You must be so wicked," she whispered, "that your own mother will no longer want you." At last, their exhausted mother stood before them in the cottage. Her face was pale. Her voice trembled. "I have given you everything I have," she said. "I have loved you, protected you, and forgiven you again and again. But you have filled this home with misery. The girls watched her silently. Their mother took a slow breath. If you continue behaving this way, I will have no choice but to leave. Blue Eyes remembered the music box. Turkey remembered the dancing figures. Neither child apologized. Their mother lowered her head. Then perhaps, she said, you would rather have another mother. The fire cracked inside the hearth. Outside, the forest seemed to grow strangely quiet. Their mother continued. If I go, a new mother may come to this house, but she will not look like me. The girls listened. She will have glass eyes that never close. A cold wind passed through the windows. She will have a wooden tail that scrapes behind her as she walks. Something moved in the darkness beyond the cottage. And she will not love you as I have. The girls felt uneasy, but their desire to see the music box was stronger than their fear. They returned to the road the next morning and told the stranger everything. The girl smiled wider than ever. You are almost ready, she said. She opened the box. The tiny dancers began their final performance. The music was faster now, louder. The little man and the woman spun wildly, their painted smiles frozen upon their faces. The sisters watched, unable to look away. But just before the final note, the stranger slammed the lid shut. You must do one last thing, she said. What? Asked Blue Eyes. Drive your mother away. That evening, the girls committed their worst acts yet. They screamed at their mother. They destroyed her sewing. They ruined the last of the food. And when she tried to hold them, they pushed her away. Their mother stood silently in the center of the cottage. Something inside her seemed to break. Without another word, she put on her coat. She opened the front door, and she walked into the forest. At first, the girls were pleased. They hurried outside the next morning, eager to tell the stranger they had succeeded. But the road was empty. They waited for hours. The girl with the music box never came. When evening arrived, the sisters returned home. The cottage was dark. There was no fire. No meal waited on the table. Their mother did not call their names. For the first time, the girls understood what they had done. Blue Eyes tried to light the fire, but the wood was damp. Turkey searched the cupboards, but they had ruined all the food. The sisters climbed into their bed, hungry and cold. They listened for their mother's footsteps, but only the wind moved outside. The next day, they waited for her to return. And the day after that, and the day after that. Still, she did not come. The girls began cleaning the cottage. They repaired what they could. They gathered wood. They promised one another that if their mother returned, they would be good forever. But every night, the forest remained silent, until one evening, Turkey heard something. A scratching sound, far away, moving between the trees. Scrape, scrape. Blue Eyes sat upright. The sound came closer. Scrape, scrape. The girls remembered their mother's warning. Glass eyes, a wooden tail. They rushed to the door and locked it. The scratching reached the garden gate. Something heavy stepped onto the path. The sisters hid beneath the table. Through a crack in the curtain, Blue Eyes saw a tall figure standing beyond the window. It had the shape of a woman, but its movements were stiff and unnatural. Two glass eyes reflected the moonlight. Behind it dragged a long wooden tail. Scrape, scrape. The creature approached the cottage door. Then it knocked. 3 slow knocks. The girls covered their mouths. A voice spoke from outside. It sounded almost like their mother's voice. Almost. Children, it called. Open the door. Neither girl moved. The handle turned once, twice, then stopped. For a moment, there was silence. The girls hoped the creature had gone. But then, the wooden tail scraped along the outside wall. It circled the cottage, searching. The glass eyes appeared at one window, then another, always watching, never blinking. At last, the creature moved away. Its wooden tail faded into the forest. Scrape, scrape. The following morning, the girls packed a small bag and left the cottage. They went searching for their real mother. They followed the paths through the forest. They called her name beside rivers and beneath ancient trees, but they never found her. When darkness came, they slept beneath bushes or inside hollow logs. And every night, somewhere behind them, they heard the same sound. Scrape, scrape. The new mother was following. The girls continued deeper into the forest. They no longer cared about the music box. They no longer cared about the dancing figures. They wanted only to see their mother again. Some say the sisters eventually found a small house far beyond the forest and lived there in hiding. Others say the new mother caught them before the sunrise. But on certain nights, travelers still claim to hear children's crying among the trees. They hear the girls calling for their mother, and somewhere close behind them comes the slow dragging of wood across the earth. Scrape, scrape. So when your mother warns you not to wander, when she asks you to listen, when she tells you that wickedness invites terrible things into your home, remember blue eyes and turkey. Because once the old mother leaves, the new mother may already be on her way. So, Diner, how's your meal? I wonder, do you think the lady with the music box manifested the entity the girls told her about? You tell me. And if you're still hungry, feast on this next story.